Hello, everybody. Welcome to the XAPI party. I'm going to give a couple of seconds for all of people's bits and bytes to join us here in this room as we pull everybody in from the networking tables, which is one of the cool features in AirMeet. I'm totally loving the networking table. But want to make sure we get everybody off of the tables and here into the session. I sometimes think about kind of moving people from place to place, like we're using the Star Trek transporter, and we need to make sure that all of your atoms arrive in the same in the same place in the same dimension. So welcome everybody. I'm Megan Torrance, and this is the XAPI party. Actually, this is the 15th XAPI party event that we have hosted, and it is super exciting to have you here. It is super exciting to have this lineup today. I'm actually really excited about this program. And yes, I know those of you who've been to the XAPI party say, gosh, she's super excited about the program every time. Generally, it's because I also, before every one of these, have had at least one of these full of really great coffee. But this program is really cool because this program really today starts to feature the power and the maturity of XAPI. And so it's kind of cool to see. I think those of you who've been doing this event for a few years will start to see a shift. So that's pretty exciting to me. So Peter Gunther mentioned not full of statement. Statement actually is the official cocktail of XAPI, which there will be some statements consumed. And at the end of the day, I wish we could send you statements through XAPI, which would be perfect. But yes, we did commission a cocktail for XAPI and as part of the overall maturity of the specification. So that's always a fun part of this as well. So welcome to the XAPI party. I'm actually glad to have you here today. A little bit of history as we get started. We've got a little bit of pre-session here, and then I will get out of the way and let the session start at the top of the hour. In the early days of XAPI, ADL, the Advanced Distributed Learning Group out of the federal government in the US, the folks who shepherd and support the SCORM and the XAPI standard and do a whole bunch of other things, right? ADL was running XAPI design cohorts. They were opportunities for people to get together, experiment, play around, push the boundaries, find the holes, and create prototype projects with XAPI. And at the end of each one of those design cohorts, which were incredibly powerful for community building, for adoption, but also for some distributed L&D, right? Think of it as community science, right? Or citizen science, right? At the end of each one of those design cohorts, there was then a boot camp, and not so much a boot camp like, hi, I'm going to learn to code boot camp, but a boot camp where people shared out what it was that they were doing. At that first boot camp that I went to, which was the third one that ADL ran, actually Matt Cleaver and I and a few other people who we're on a project, Meg Fairchild, Allison Haas, Patrick, there's a bunch of people on a project. We did a project that involved the XAPI gnome, who was the primary actor in a series of activities for onboarding to a new job, one of which included, he was onboarding to his new job at a fish packing plant in, wait for it, Nome, Alaska. And one of those statements involved this fish that he had to throw, and tucked into the fish's guts, much to my young daughter's dismay at the time, I will confess, is an accelerometer. And so this would, when the fish was properly logged in and I threw the fish at Matt Cleaver fast enough, would register a successful XAPI statement in the LRS, right? So the XAPI, right, these kind of capstone gatherings of experimenters and adopters and explorers were fun. Right? We had these opportunities to get together and share ideas, and that was super powerful. And a few months later, I found myself sitting in Craig Wiggins's office at ADL, and he had run the cohorts, and he said, yeah, ADL's not doing these anymore. They're a little off mission. And I thought, oh, somebody's got to do these. This was such a moving and exciting learning experience. And at the same time, it was so powerful for XAPI itself. And so it was one of those weak moments, right? You know how you go to the grocery store and you're hungry and you buy a lot of things? My tip for you today, make sure you have a snack before you go to the grocery store. Follow me for more tips. But I said, well, somebody's got to keep this going. Do y'all mind if I do? And I think Craig Wiggins like burst out laughing at me. He's like, yeah, you can totally do that, right? So that was 2015. We actually hosted 3 XAPI parties in 2015. We've dialed that back down a little bit. I've been running 2 a year ever since. So this is the 15th party, and it follows on the 13th XAPI cohort that we run. So the XAPI cohort is 12 weeks of free virtual learning by doing, or learning by watching. Either way, learning by lurking. And it's been a powerful experience. Our last few years, we have averaged more than 600 participants per semester, and we make people sign up each time. So do me a favor, somebody go ahead and throw the cohort link in the chat. The cohort is this really powerful learning experience and an opportunity to jump in and get your feet wet. We run them 2 semesters a year, spring and fall. Well, spring, it actually starts in January, but we're hopeful around here. So we call it spring. And so we invite you to join us. We invite you to invite your teams to join us and your networks to join us. From a learning experience, it's pretty awesome. And a really cool opportunity. So what you get today in XAPI Party is the report outs from some of those teams. And so that is a really important part of XAPI Party, and the coolness that we get to see that happening in out and in a way in which the entire community globally can participate and engage. And people do watch these recordings afterwards. People want to know what's going on with XAPI. And this is a great way to do that, right? At the same time, XAPI Party is not just all about cohort. XAPI Party is about real life case studies. It's about the state of the specification. It's about how it connects in with the larger learning and the data ecosystem within an organization. And so there'll be lots and lots of presentations today about all of those things too. So there's a little bit of everything in there. This is, I believe, our third XAPI party that's been virtual. We used to have them at our office in TorranceLearning in Michigan. Why do we call it a party when it's really a conference? Because if we want to invite you, like entice people to come to Michigan in December, we had to make it sound like a lot of fun. And yes, we generally do serve alcohol. So that's part of the fun and really part of the vibe. Right. And that communicates our vibe too. So this learning and this working should be fun. And when Duncan Welder shows up, it's always fun. Good to see you, friend. So welcome to the party. I'd like to pause for just a moment and ask and also by them in the process show you how to use a little bit of AirMeet. So there is an emoji icon in the bottom of your browser here. If you're not on Chrome, you will absolutely want to be Chrome. There we go. People are finding the emojis. Okay, so here we go. What I want to do is get a sense. Hold your emojis for a minute. Hold your emojis. Okay, I want to get a sense for who's in the room, right? So my question before I do this, right, is where are you on your XAPI journey? So everybody, get ready with your emojis. If you can spell XAPI, give me an emoji. Any emoji you want. If you can spell an emoji, let's have or it can spell XAPI. Okay, got lots of people can spell XAPI. We're in good shape. Okay. So the next one is, if you know what the X stands for, give me an emoji. All right. All right. Generally, people who are here know what the X stands for, but just in case, because we tend to just jump to XAPI and not say its full name, which is Experience API, right? So X API, the X and the experience means we're gathering data not only about the learning, but also about the performing and other things in the environment, including devices and sensors, right? So there's lots of opportunity here. If you think about SCORM, SCORM is just capturing data about, not only just about data about learning, it's capturing data just about e-learning that's launched from an LMS. Some LMSs, right? So SCORM, which has been amazing for our industry globally to be speaking a single language across everything, right? Consider the power of that, right? But it's still pretty limited. I have to be connected to an internet. I have to launch from an LMS. It's got to be an e-learning packaged a certain way, right? And yep, I get it. I do e-learning all day, but it's not the only way that people learn. Right? So XAPI is pretty powerful. All right, so get ready for those emojis. Give me an emoji if you have sent an XAPI statement. Okay. By the way, if you've been a part of the XAPI cohort, you have had an opportunity to send XAPI statements. I encourage you to do that. And there's lots of opportunities to get involved, including workshops that we're running. Matt Cleaver and I are running a workshop in January in which, right, it's called XAPI hands-on, which means you send statements, and geek-free, which means you don't have to know where any of the colons and brackets go in order to make this work. That's really important. In fact, I'm wearing my Peace, Love, and Data Interoperability t-shirt. I've been referred to as the data hippie, right? But what I want to do, right, I want not only for my data to be interoperable so that I can be gathering data from multiple sources and very easily using those multiple sources and making the learning better and analyzing things and personalizing and the whole nine, right? But I also want XAPI to be easy, and it's not easy until and mass adoption until we make sure it's geek free. So that's important to me. Next one, okay? Get your emojis. Give me an emoji if you have received an XAPI statement in a learning record store. So relatively easy to send one. Actually getting one is the other side of things. Okay, so we've got lots of emojis. That's good news. That's good news. Here's the bonus question. Give me an emoji if you have made a decision based on XAPI data from your learning record store. Yeah, right? That's where it's at. I'll tell you one of the coolest things. And so I usually do this when I'm doing this live at a conference. I have people stand up, right? And you stay standing until you've gotten to things, right? So everybody stands up at first and they're all smirking. Yes, we can spell XAPI, right? And then they slowly sit down and stuff. I actually, right, have had people stand back up. People who aren't sending data, they're not receiving data, but they are making decisions based on data. And that, again, is a sign of the maturity of the specification, which is what we're all about here, right? So that's super, super cool. So that's really what this is all about. It's what Cohort is all about. It's about sharing. It's about learning. There are people on our program today and signed in already today for this event who were there at the original conception. That sounds gross. At the original like ideation of XAPI, like, hey, SCORM isn't where it's at, right? And we need to do something different. Somebody the SCORM is described as like the best of 1990s thinking implemented in the 21st century. And that's not to bash SCORM. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for SCORM. Okay, I wouldn't be in this industry if it weren't for geek-free SCORM, right? And so, but XAPI gives us that opportunity to take it further. So let's take a real quick look. I'm going to share my screen and right. So here's our program for today. We've got 2 tracks, right? Track number 1, the blue track is kind of like, what's possible with XAPI? If you are brand new to XAPI, track 1 is where you're going to hang out today. If you are looking for case studies to implement, XAPI in your environment, track 1 is where you're going to be. If you are looking to convince your boss and your stakeholders in your organization that XAPI is the way to go, track 1 is where you want to be. Track 2 is, I call it getting in the weeds with XAPI. Track 2 is where we're talking about things like data governance and data migration and CMI5, which, as I was joking this morning with the team at TorranceLearning, CMI5 is it's that thing underneath the hood we should never have to pay attention to. We all need to pay attention to, because without it, the rest of it doesn't work. But like, if you're ready for that and data standards and all sorts of stuff, track 2 is where you are. So let's take a quick look. I'm going to talk in Eastern US time. Do the math for your own time zones. At 11, we'll start with XAPI Beyond the Statements, where Peter Gunther, who's now at Watershed, but was at TorranceLearning and actually was the cohort host for a number of cohorts, joins Matt Cleaver to talk about, right? I talked about XAPI statements. Have you sent an XAPI statement? They're going to talk about XAPI beyond the statements, because it's more than just statements. So at the same time, George Vilches over in track 2 is really going to be talking about CMI5, getting your current SCORE material migrated over to CMI5, making sure your LMSs are talking CMI5, your courses are talking CMI5, and what all of that means. I love the code words in our industry, so you'll hear more about Project Catapult and things like that. And we'll make sure we give you the link to track 2 in just a minute. And when you do, you'll have to sign back in over to that room. It's okay. You'll only have to sign in once. And once you're in one track, you can switch to the others at any point. So go ahead and switch back and forth. And then Jamie and Liz, if you haven't already, could you put the link to the schedule in the chat so that everybody has this also, right? At noon, Duncan Welder's going to be talking about multiple opportunities for really driving retention using XAPI to support learners as well as to support leaders in seeing how the learning is unfolding in the organization. It's actually really, really cool, and a nice opportunity to kind of see, like, right, there's no colons and brackets. It's like, what can this do for me? Right. Over on the other side in track 2, Jim Elder, Jason Haig, and Andy Johnson are really going to talk about how do we, right, kind of leveling things up, how do we work across functional units within an organization and start looking at XAPI and other specifications for career credentialing and assertions of skill data. So that's really cool, right? Both of those are why would I do XAPI? And so good luck finding a session at that time slot. At 1 o'clock, Rebecca Davenport, who, by the way, as of yesterday, is a brand new Brandon Hall Gold Award winner for this project that she's sharing with us. So it's kind of like this next awesome reveal, and she should be riding high. Make sure when you show up to Rebecca's session that you give her a huge shout out and congratulations, because the folks at Nebraska Medicine are doing some really, really cool work, but it's also really, really cool work that you can do too. So I'm very excited about that. In track 2, we have our first 2 XAPI cohort team demos. And what's been interesting, if you've been a longtime cohort fan, usually cohort projects are about making a thing that does a thing, sending data from a storyline or from an Alexa or from a fish, right? And interestingly, this past session in cohort, the project teams that have gotten a lot of traction have been project teams that are making and working on data specifications for things that do a thing. So we've got 2 team demos there. one for that was working on a broader XAPI profile project, and how to get people started with profiles. And the other is using a real live example, creating a profile for the product Pebble Pro, which is pretty sweet. At 2 o'clock, Andrew Downs is sharing 21 pilots on my Spotify playlist this morning. No, not that 21 pilots. Andrew has 21 different pilot projects that you can do with learning analytics and XAPI data. And that looks like super fun, right? Again, what can I do with this thing? And on the other side, on track 2, deciphering XAPI across the human capital supply chain, right? So think about, right? So XAPI is the data specification. It's how we talk about what we do. It feeds into a larger architecture of how do we talk about learning and competency and skills and assertions and careers along very large, complex organizations and competency models. And how do I organize all of that? And what's the future of that? Where does XAPI plug in? So if you're ready for that, that looks like a really interesting session. 3 o'clock. The last of our content session tracks. So in track 1, Kristen Torrance, no relation, is going to be talking about how her team uses XAPI and learning analytics to measure competencies in educational games. So again, real life case study showing you how it works. And I'm really, really excited. This is a session that came out at DevLearn this year. And I was like, ooh, I would love to bring that to the XAPI party, right? So I'm really excited to have Kristen join us for that. On the other hand, on the other side in track 2, we've got 2 project demos coming along. And one is from Team CMI5. So they use Catapult and the CMI5 spec to test out multiple different learning objects, and you get to see those samples. Super, super cool. And then Team Down Under, yes, from Australia, has a presentation in which they are talking about building a profile and a project around geolocation. So super, super cool to see what they're doing, and super, super awesome that they're getting up very early in order to join us for that session. The session is recorded, but team members will be available live. It'll just be like 5:30 in the morning for some of them on a Saturday morning. So they're joining us from the future and going to be able to answer questions about their project. And then we're going to wrap this up with a panel discussion back over here in track 1. So everybody will come back together and really talk about the future of XAPI. We've got some case studies that weren't already previously shared today during the day, talking about industry needs, what learning designers need, what we wish software developers would be doing. And so I'm really excited that Judy Katz, Kristen Torrance, Andy Johnson, and Andrew Downs, yes, 2 Torrances, and Andrew and Andy and Judy will join us for that panel discussion. So I'm really excited to wrap that up today. So I am going to give you a few minutes to get into your next session. Can we post the link over to track 2? So if you wanted to go over and check out George's session on CMI5 and Project Catapult, that's over in track 2. We're going to kick you all out of here back into networking tables for a few minutes while we get Matt and Peter up on deck for the first session in track 1. And Judy, awesome. Find an Andy Torrance for a panel. That would be perfect. I'm sure one exists out there. Welcome to the party. Share this out on your social media. And if you have any questions throughout the day, you can find Jamie or Liz or I, and we'll help you out. Thanks, everybody.